Okay. Um. So you see at the bottom, you see a bunch of pictures of kids and what they do. Those are kids. They've done some nasty things. To make me, they made me experience nasty things in regard of my reaction when I see these kids, little babies. They're so sad, beautiful little kids, beautiful little girls. Now in my mind turning into something pedophilia centric. It's so disgusting. These lowlifes have been using this technology to rewire brains into experiencing disgusting ways of thinking. Disgusting. But you obviously see the pattern of what they do. They play with your brain in so many nasty ways. And they break you down. Try to make you accept this. With me, what they try to do is, once they make me experience this thing, they try to say, no, we match it to you when you're a kid. When you're a kid, you experience these things. It's like, no. You are making me experience this thing today. And then go into my memories and implant the similar stimulations in my memory as a child. But imagine trying to tell somebody who's an adult that what you're experiencing right now is you when you're a child. You an adult. So you somehow rewire my brain to be like a child. But listen to what they've done to others. These things they do to me is now unique to me. These people are very pedophilia centric, and they try to intimidate you and scare you into accepting this talk about now it's you when you're a child. But what? Not only did you're gonna hear them torturing children sexually, you're gonna hear the pedophilia type of torture. You're gonna hear people being forced to think in these disgusting ways. And they're like, no, but remember what you did as a kid. Because as a child, I did something stupid in 8th grade. It's some stupid thing. I did it once, it was just that. A child can do stupid things. And they're like, no, black little girls, that's you. Remember, that's you. No. And as I'm saying that, they even give me stimulations. To be like, no, they are, it's true. No. You are making me experiencing this thing I'm experiencing today and making me experience the same thing when I was a child. And then you bring up that one moment of a kid who just turned 14 years old. You see how what they try to make me say? A kid who just turned 14 in 8th grade. And you see how they have to this forced speech in order to create this falsified reality. Reality is something they create themselves. But I'm glad they did this in front of the camera to show how they create these manipulations to create a fantasy of theirs. Because what they do is they force you to experience these nasty things. But what you're experiencing is not unique to you. Others are saying the same thing. But it doesn't even end there. Not only they do these horrible things where they force people to think in these pedophilia ways, but they torture women. They do this terrible tormenting. They rape them. They fry them. They do this to kids. They do all this. They radiate kids. This is just a sample. They aim these perverse stimulations toward babies. Kids. What I'm going to say is, what you're going to hear is not what I'm saying. It's not what others are saying. And for me, they're like, no, what we're doing is, this reaction that you're feeling right now, you will feel that when you were a kid. What we're doing is, we bringing it up, resurfacing this childlike, this ways of thinking that when you were a child. We're not doing the pedophilia type of torture. Do you understand how... that alone does just... So basically, you're making an adult man start thinking like a kid. It doesn't even make sense. But it's never what they're doing. What they're doing is they make you experience it today. And then go into childhood, make you feel the same thing, and it's like, you see, we're matching to what you used to feel like that when you're a kid. Can you imagine this nastiness? But the reality and the validation I have that they don't need to force people of all kind of people, men, women, to feel these nasty stimulations, reactions toward children. Even the psyops try to play this femme fatale. Oh, we're just women. It's like, no. But the embarrassing part of that, as they make me experience these nasty things as kids, and it's like, no, we actually it's you when you're a kid. You hear what's actually happening in these agencies. CIA agent doing things to 2-year-old and 6-year-old. This DOD, whatever, downloading child porn and doing all these nasty things. Subscribing to this like child porn websites and nasty things. And these people are like, no, we match it to you when you're a kid. The same entities contracting this low life. And you know these are the entities in church. You know they're not like the neighborhood watch or community or BS stories they come up with. They woke me up this morning, 4 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and started making me have these dialogues. Oh, little girls is like that. And they give me stimulations, and then I open my phone. I see these kids, these babies, start doing these stimulations. Like, no, we might remember when you were a kid. You feel like, no, you're making me think like that today, and make me think that this is how I thought when I was a child. But does it even make sense? I'm an adult man. You tell me I'm thinking like that. You're making me think the way I used to think when I was a kid. You're delusional. In every ways you try to put it, it makes no sense. You're saying that in their logic is we will rewiring your brain to think like a kid. No, you're rewiring my brain to look at kids in these ways. They're nasty. It's like, no, that's how you used to see. That we match their world when you're a kid. Yeah, that's you. You were when you're a kid. So I want target individuals stay strong. They are disgusting lowlifes. They use childlike people for a reason. Because in their mind, they think that makes sense. I'd rather get raped, tortured, and tormented in every way it's possible than having to live the way these people live. They tell me how they're going to watch me being burned and cut in pieces, as if this is going to change what they're involved. As if they're not the one here right now. As if it's going to take, like, this time they spend doing these things is going to be given back to them. As if life is going to be even better for them. Nothing's going to change. It's still be bottom feeder, low lives. No matter how I'm going to be tortured, however I'm going to scream. Do you know that while they were doing this to me, people have died that were involved in this? Trash. With this retardation of logics. Yes, they do the theater for torture. Yes, they force people to think about kids in these disgusting ways. Yes, it's what they're making me experience. And then going to my memories, even manipulating my memories as a child to create a matching thing. Nasty. And then talk about, I remember the stupid thing you did as a kid. Yes, I know. Children can do this. Stupid or dumb, impulsive moment as a kid. Yes. I know. It's embarrassing, but kid can do that. Do you remember that you were involved in a program of torture and burn kids? Sexually torture? You nasty bottom feeders. 3-year-old they torture the testicles of a 3-year-old. This is what they're involved in. Nasty pedos. So to all my target individuals, stay strong. Because this low life are just the nothingness on earth. And they call you nothing, but they're this trash doing these things. Stay strong.
Disturbing pedophilia type of images and videos when I close my eyes. It also includes videos of In 2015, I began to experience what some call V2K, or voice to skull. This involves the projection of voices, noises, and music directly into my mind to communicate with me in real time and at the speed of thought. And it also includes the manipulation of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions in the person's mind. Additionally, the targeting is all highly perverted and sexual, as well as destructive and violent. Burning, dirty diaper, or baby powder, which they sometimes combine with the pedophilia type of torture, including the threat of planned includes many different types of zaps to varying degrees to the genitals, butt, anus, and the entire pelvic area.
I just can't take this whole thing into account so much. I make it so dramatic. It is dramatic. It's somebody trying to end my life. It's somebody trying to end who I am as a person. It's somebody trying to take over my mind, putting thoughts of pedophilia. This disgusting, disgusting, disgusting things. You saw where I was going with that first word. Disgusting.
Are more psychologically specialized for each target. Most common examples include homosexual targets that are forced with voices that are derogatory to their lifestyle and similar mental images. Almost all targets are forced to view child pornography in their minds.
I could have been killed by then with the use of this weapon of torture that they had at the time, and because I have 4 children at the time, they were all little. Even though a few days after I summoned after 10 years of I found internet, and a network of victims been abused in the same manner as I've been, I declared war to this caca, this zombies from hell, because before this date, I was the perfect victim for this psychopaths groups. I summoned after 10 years of stalking and torture in 1996, and because the pain was so unbearable, they used some type of technology weapon where they aim at my head, and I felt that a hot knife was stabbing me in the head, and the act so coward that I didn't have other choice. I could have been killed by then with the use of this weapon of torture that they had at the time, and because I have 4 children at the time, they were all little. Even though a few days after I summoned, they attacked one of my twins, also in her head. But today, after 3 years that I rebelled against them, with an attitude, and no more doing what they want me to do, because that exactly I did, they started over with the pain, but this time, I didn't back up, because I knew the new neighbors were listening, and since I knew they introduced themselves as an organization of goodness, I knew they wouldn't torture me in the same manner that I was years ago. So after the initial attack, I took a defiant attitude and talked back, and telling them things are not the same like it was before. I wasn't afraid anymore, because I wasn't the only victim. I felt overpowered by the fact that there's already thousands and possibly millions of victims all over the world, that I felt strong with this. They simply couldn't do anything to change my attitude, and because I took it for so long, I immediately told them, so to speak, that I wasn't going to change my attitude, that the puppeteer that they thought they have is gone, and this is me, the real persona, and I wasn't to take their bullshit anymore. Then said this, I started searching in internet for information about the abuse and the weapons that this psychopaths groups are using on innocent Americans, and I was overwhelmed by the horror stories of the target individuals and what their immediate families are going through, the information about the technology weapons that are used by the government, the agencies including CIA, FBI, NSA, Homeland Security, DOD, DOJ, etc., and mainly, the very well documented information of the technology in the web, including the well-documented organized stalking and torture run by neighborhoods, sort of speak, settled in neighborhoods, under the sponsored of our government. Mr. Bush, you are not going to tell me that you do not acknowledge all of this corruption happening. You know exactly what's going on. I have joined support groups, sent letters to congressmen, senators, representatives in the government, also have joined international groups of victims where I have sent my testimony of events since my harassment began. Today, since this coward group of slaves realized I'm not changing in the old ways, they decided to get me in any way possible. I learned through other TIs that they've been assaulted sexually, and I realized I wasn't the only one. Then I knew we all get the same thing. Also that some of the TIs stated that they forced her through holograms to see aberrant sexual scenes, that she felt that she was starting likening what she was forced to see every night, that I thought how that could happen, but then I told them that they would never take my will, and since we all know how the psychopaths groups work with what the TI says or does, then they started during the nights to run some kind of beam where suddenly I've been wakened up at 3 o'clock in the mornings and some kind of voice comes and say phrases, sound incomprehensible, and some other times can actually catch what is saying, ITS not my voice, a different voice, and I realized that they are trying to program for me to take it in a way that I won't notice a possible change in my behavior. Of course this is not new, because one main thing this program is out there, is called behavior modification for the undesirable, and that's one of the excuses this groups give for the neighbor TO join, deception. I learned to talk back, in my mind, during the process when I was awakened, and I would say demeaning things, that I cannot repeat it in this blog, you know what I mean. Since they had violated me for so long, I decided to aggravate them with words in my mind. I can hear my own voice. I told them I'm going to make you pay for all of the years of torture that I've taken, and all you are going to hear is aggravation. For every single second of my privacy that you have taken away. From me and my family. Then said this, the slaves began a program of perversion. First was with my dog. I am very playful with my pet, and suddenly one day that I was petting him I felt strange, in the sense of the word. I thought, this is strange, and then afterwards that strange sensation continued. Then in that moment I realized that was impost, so I thought, look at this losers, don't know how to put me down, and they are doing this. So I told them that I know what you are trying to do, and I started laughing. And then I said again out loud, you'll never take my will, ass. So just to show them that I meant what I said, I kept playing with my dog, and even though that attacks continue, I don't let them get me. Today they continue with the programming of perversion, but this time they are aiming in the use. A people, better said young people, also children and homosexuals. When I aggravated them I usually called demeaning names, and one of them is referring to homosexuals. For me all of the slaves are misfits, society haters, scumbags, etc. No, I don't have anything personal against them, homosexuals, but as my way to aggravate the slaves, and since they love to use children for the torture and stalking, street theater etc. Especially teenagers for the stalking at close range with an attitude, they are using them during my sleep in the perversion program, and so you can imagine what the slaves of torture are pretending to do to me. In the last days, as today September 9th, 07, anything I do, either watching TV or reading of whatever I'm doing, they brush me sort of say, I feel like I'm aroused all day and I feel the palpitations in my genitals for what I'm thinking, and since the attack comes so quickly, I realized my programming has been set on auto in their central computers. No handlers can do something like this that quick. What made me realize the slaves are desperate to get me. Unfortunately for them they are facing a strong wall where no matter how much their computers EAP me, I know I'm not changing. As I said, I feel like they've been set up a beam where I feel constantly stimulated. I'm talking sexually, like a heat in my genitalia, like getting aroused constantly, trying to make me feel uncomfortable because of
bite mark on her arm. She has also grabbed her crotch, saying, ow, and this was used to threaten me with severe sexual torture. One day I also observed her gasping for air a few times in the same way that I do when I am being more severely suffocated. The suffocation had been in a mild state for a while up until this point. Many of their torture methods are cyclical in severity. Right after I saw this child being suffocated, then I began to experience very extreme suffocation all day, every day, for about 2 months straight, and that's also when they made it worse when I eat. Then I also work with a 4-year-old little girl with Down syndrome, as well as her 5-year-old sister who also has Down syndrome. I observed both of these girls suddenly grabbing their genitals in pain and verbalizing, ow. I observed this at least on 1 or 2 occasions for each of them during their separate sessions. In one
in the face, sound like an angry ass old person. Then a couple of days later, a female said the same thing. Don't get shot in the face. Stupid shit like that. But what I really noticed is with the Voice to Skull, it's a bunch of females. And I'm like, bro, really? You're not a woman. What real woman would stalk another female or sit back and allow that to go on? You really think they think it's nothing wrong with
you perceive yourself as being?
I have actual photographs of burns on my body. When I went to my doctor, the response was, how do I know you didn't do that to yourself? How do you even address that? I've passed 2 psychological evaluations, not 1, but 2. The one physician said, you're mentally sound as a bell. He said, I don't have any idea what's going on with you. When I go to sleep, when I go to try to sleep, I feel like I'm being lit up like a Christmas tree. I feel every cell in my body just bouncing out of my body. I can't even describe it. I get electric shock up my rectum. I get electric shock up my nose. I've woken up with burns on the end of my tongue. I've had burns on the palms of both of my hands. I vibrate. I can barely hold a piece of paper without quivering. Does that answer your question?
I'm trying to find what's the source of the...
The source are these exotic weapons. They talk about, in 2977, they talk about the space weapons, space-based weapons. Basically, in that document, it talks about exotic weapons That's what we're talking about. And the fact of the matter is, they did complete that global surveillance network. My cousin worked for the Defense Department. She worked on the global mapping of that system. And when I told her what I was going through, all she could say was, "You're on your own." Well, I've figured that out. If you would please, I urge you to pass this. I realize you can't enforce it, but if you would pass it, it might give other communities the courage to do the same thing and show our Defense Department we are not the enemy. We are not to be attacked. We are not terrorists. Most of us are defenseless women.
And I'm speaking to you on International Targeted Individual Day. I live in the US, in Illinois, and am a victim of organized
we
stalking,
need this to stop.
electronic
That's it.
harassment, microwave torture.
I've been targeted for 9 years, and I hope it'll stop.
And all of this under the roof of my home, and V2K, voice to skull, 365, 24/7.
Please become more aware of this crime and those that the crime is being committed against. We need your support and help in ending this crime.
Hello, my name is Wendy Brown. I'm a targeted individual who is living in New Zealand, but my targeting began in California. I'm an American citizen, and the targeting continues in New Zealand. I'm making this video in remembrance of Targeted Individual Day, our third annual Targeted Individual Day. And I'm asking that every honest-hearted human being open their eyes to a crime.
My name is Jeanette. I am 56 years old and I live in Baltimore, Maryland. I am a victim of covert electronic harassment and torture. I am a targeted individual.
一日も早くされることを強く望みます。
My name is Michael. I'm a targeted individual. I've been going through this for at least 5 years. I've been aware of it for about 3 years.
I'm making this video for World Targeted Individual Day.
You're a worm until you're country, and they're just like the exact same symptomology.
Other than the symptomology and the vast amount of people in government and so forth that experience these same symptoms, what other evidence do we have of technology like this?
Well, I sent you some articles and papers. There are just many books. You can go on Google. The difference between, I just don't believe these diplomats are being hit by a drive-by microwave weapon. I think the brain damage is being done because the brain rewires itself more rapidly. Let's say if you lose your eyesight, then your hearing and taste, smell, your taste and smell get better. Your brain adapts faster. During this adaptation process, you can insert an external signal, sort of like hiving brains together.
Insert an external signal.
Yes, an electromagnetic signal. And how would you do that, you might ask? And the details get very complex. But there are several patents that you can access that talk about inserting a signal into the microcircuits and macrocircuits of the brain. Now, you got to know those patterns, the lock and key mechanism. Otherwise, it won't affect you. It will only affect the target brain if the brain print fits.
The brain print?
Yes, signature. Everyone has a unique one. And you ask, well, how do you broadcast this over the world? How do we talk nuclear submarines underwater?
How do you explain this is happening to Len? How do you rationalize it?
I can't There's a whole bunch of chemical imbalances,
Right,
et cetera.
right.
These weapons can actually induce and mimic all those diseases and effects. But the conversations, the scripts, they're called, are always the same. And I've heard them all. They're slightly tailored for each individual, but they're scripts. And they're meant to confuse the very derogatory. That's just typical breakdown. If you've ever been to boot camp, you're a worm until you're part of the team. And why would you want to break down the ego of that person? To rebuild it. So this gets into creating Manchurian candidates, split personality spies, and information couriers, people that will carry messages to other places without being aware that they're actually doing it. So you can imagine the misperception that is caused by this. And a lot of people, the targets, when they're interviewed, are tricked into believing evil aliens have abducted their brains, demons.
They're tricked.
Yes.
How are they tricked? Pardon this brief interruption. So much more affordable than doing NAD IV drips. Head on over to ver.so and use the coupon.
The V2K. So they'll say, we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's, satanic ritual abuse. And I've heard all the stories. One guy believed it was some 14-year-old kid with an Xbox that lived next door. The trickery really is that great when you're under hypnosis that people will believe something other than a massive government could do this. And so anyway, my interview with Len, he very well described a typical breakdown script that's used on almost all the TI victims. TI stands for targeted individuals. Some of them are pretty crazy. They have names like Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, and those are the confusion tactics. And when they're breaking down the ego of the human through all the pains and tortures and the verbal breakdown, these are typical CIA torture scripts. I mean, Kubark manual.
And like you said, only one actually served any jail time for this. One employee had sexual contact. This is one employee of the CIA had sexual contact with a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. He was simply fired. One employee purchased sexually explicit videos of young girls filmed by their mothers. He resigned. One employee estimated that he had viewed up to 1,400 sexually abusive images of children while on agency assignments. Not sure what actions, if any, were taken by him. One contractor arranged for sex with an undercover FBI agent. I think that you mentioned that. Posing as a child, he had his contract revoked. One CIA staffer was charged with child sexual crimes, and the employee was also under investigation for mishandling classified material. The CIA did not answer detailed questions, saying only that the agency takes all allegations of possible criminal misconduct committed by personnel seriously. So you're saying the reason why they didn't take this more seriously, why there weren't actual prosecutions involving children, says BuzzFeed, including the viewing of images of abuse, have been uncovered at other agencies that handle sensitive information. In a November 2009 report, the Department of Defense acknowledged that dozens of Pentagon staff members or contractors had such images. In 2014, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community found that 2 officials from the National Reconnaissance Office, which oversees America's spy satellites, acknowledged viewing images of child sexual abuse during polygraph examinations. This is so disturbing. At a symposium in 2016, Daniel Payne, a top Pentagon security official, said that when workers' computers were examined, the amount of child porn I see is just unbelievable. Is this something that is happening for whatever reason with more frequency in our intelligence agencies, or is this something that is more pervasive in the general population than I originally realized? I mean, what's going on here? This is so bizarre. Remember, it's so evil.
Ali, we're told, and when I was put through recruitment into the Intel community, you know, you're put through polygraphs, you're put through a rigorous selection process. Why aren't these people weeded out? Why are so many pedophiles allowed to be given top-level security clearance? Remember, these aren't just people walking in off the street and saying, hey, can I get hired? Can I get a job? You're put through an extremely rigorous background check screening process. It's called an SSBI, single scope background investigation. There are people, they interview you, they interview your family, they interview your contacts, they go through your online footprint, they go through everything. So why is it that when they're going through these footprints, they're not checking, these digital footprints, they're not checking for so many pedophiles getting through their ranks? If it were up to me, you need to go into Congress, and Congress needs to launch a brand new church committee, number one, to talk about domestic surveillance operations, but number two, to ask the question, why are there so many pedophiles sitting behind those computer screens within the walls of Langley, within the Pentagon, and throughout the broader intelligence community?
Make it appear as though, as it used to be before, it's more stealthy. Like, they turn it down a notch, they turn it down a lot to make it appear as though the thoughts in my head are actually mine, which I know they aren't most of the time, because yeah, these people are very perverse, and they have hatred